Hello there, and welcome to The Value of Everything. So, just going to explore a little bit of a thought on small margins, small businesses, little ideas, little turnover. Doesn't sound that relevant, but I was just thinking in terms of how where we have a lot of systems like central banking and taxation, lots of different ways in which wealth is extracted and siphoned up to the corporates and pretty much lost in inflation, a number of different means and ways where loans and all this money is just literally funneled away from us. There is definitely costs which are occurring, and I'm just thinking in terms of small businesses. So, just obviously, like the very small businesses, you think of like your orange juice stand, just somebody just selling a few things online, which is all fine and dandy, and I guess you could earn a little bit of money from those kind of things, but there is a lot of opportunity costs which come about when something is deemed to be unviable just by the situation of the economy. Now, obviously, one counter argument that you can put forward is to say that if it is not economically viable, then the business shouldn't exist in the first place. But there are certain environmental factors which are coming into place, which it does span some ideas. So, one theory that I put out, what I just was thinking about a little while ago, was that you could have a charity or sort of a social care kind of business which really turned over a tiny amount of money. Say we were living in a totally tax-free environment, there's no inflation, there's just a unit of exchange of wealth which is not manipulated or anything like that. Say that you were providing something of value to society or value to other people, which was like to help them with their sense of community or sense of health. A number of those little things which people do find rewarding, and they find something that they get back in return, just not only in a monetary level, but they find that business gives them something in reward. And gives them something to live on at the same time. That will be incredible. And then also you've got, obviously, once that business has seemed to be viable for a certain point of time, there's definitely ideas to expand the business, maybe franchise it out. Who knows what else, other things that could occur with the opportunity of having very tiny, small margin businesses which are providing very say high personal well-being kind of services in comparison to just purely based upon the profit margin, whereby the profit margin you sort of tend to go into the realm of giving somebody something a little bit more material. I don't know if this theory is going quite to part, but I guess you've got certain things like gym memberships which aren't quite as material, but in terms of just like in general products, obviously if you go online you're going to purchase things from Amazon, you're going to be purchasing potentially financial services, who knows what you're going to be purchasing online, but you do expect something directly in return. But when it comes to happiness and well-being, you don't necessarily see anything in that realm, especially from the grassroots. Now there is obviously the voluntary sector, and a lot of people who are finding that they're not able to find any work and are just looking for just experience to get their foot in the door, are obviously going into the voluntary sector and trying out things whereby they're, I don't know, handing out leaflets or providing some sort of light care or doing some kind of community service. Which is all fine and nice, but I would say that a lot of those services, all those voluntary services anyway, I would say that there is definitely an opportunity there where people could be making a tiny slice of money from those areas, and in return for that tiny slice of money, you are actually improving the well-being of the community in general. Now, another little hidden cost and a hidden factor when it comes to inflation, central banking, all of these kind of little areas, is that people start to retract the all the little frivolous spends that they make, and then they leave it based upon the more essential things like food, accommodation, just your food, shelter, water, things like that, where it comes down to your basic survival needs. So, in terms of where it comes to people maybe giving out a couple of dollars here and there is obviously where the state of the economy is right now. People will retract all of that kind of spending, and when it comes to something like voluntary or charity or something that's helping out the community, maybe people avoid things. Maybe people think, oh well, I'm paying my taxpayers' money into these charity this redistribution to wealth, so my taxes must be doing some kind of good work into the community. So there isn't really any kind of moral questioning that I need to base upon myself and what good I'm doing in the world, because the government is doing all that for me. Also, that in the means of transferring wealth, that I guess you could make a good argument that where you want to make a purchase of something, it still is fairly difficult especially if you want to make a small tip online or something. You're going to have to enter in your card details, and you really only want to do that as a sort of a fairly expensive item, maybe mid-range to expensive item. You're going to really want to use your credit card online and things like that. So I know this is where Bitcoin comes into quite handy. They're quite good for dealing out tips and tiny little incentives for doing things. So if you did have the combined factor of an easy mechanism of transferring tiny little funds from one side to the other, where people think that they're doing some kind of good into society, I know charity systems are in place for that anyway, but then also you are in an environment where there is just that little bit of tipping money. People find, rather than going home and looking on their mobile phones for material items to add to their collection, they're potentially looking at how they can improve society, and they're empowering themselves to seeing how they can change the world for a better place, for a vision that they see for the future. If they envisage like Back to the Future kind of future, that they can make progressions and give tips to certain people that might be able to push forward those ideas. I know there's things like crowdfunding and a lot of new interesting ways in which online people can connect with each other and redistribute wealth independently, rather than having the mechanisms of government to do that for them. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. Where else can I think that where small and obviously then another thing obviously is where the human workforce are coming out of schools. They're trying to build up to this grand qualification where they can go to these massive corporations and apply for work there. It's a system in which people funneled into thinking, okay, well, I need to get this this piece of paper. I need to apply for this job. I need to attain this working level. I need to be this kind of employer to my employee to my employer. It's all of these things which potentially you could say to a certain degree is shutting down somebody's mind. These people are fairly intelligent people, but then they're now getting caught up into the mechanical cogs of a major multinational conglomerate company, which is potentially gives them certain ideas, but really from a ground perspective of understanding how to set up a business and all the personal touches, accounting, being a salesperson, all of those things, and maybe even looking ethically to the community and seeing what they can provide for other people. All of those things have been lost in this greying out of the corporate world. I know that corporations do have charity arms and you can do voluntary things with them, but I guess, from a real ground level where somebody is taking opportunities in their own hands and really are exercising it from a small scale business idea, and they're finding that there's just enough money for them to continue on with their lives and have enough for food and shelter. There is really important things which are occurring there. I guess another constraint which you could potentially say and add to the realm of small businesses and small margins and small profitability is that one of the essential things that which really is innate into human beings is that obviously where we have competition for the sexes. So if you want to have a high caliber mate, you probably would like to acquire a lot of wealth or material wealth, which is deemed by somebody who's deemed by another. Say, if you're a man, you're going to try and accumulate a lot of material wealth, and then you potentially are going to find a wife who is looking for somebody who's a good provider, and that does obviously really change in which the way the world sort of revolves round, because people now are hunting for money, hunting for the gold chains, the Mercedes-Benz, all of those things, all of those trappings, which is obviously some kind of trap in some ways. And it would be kind of interesting if there was more small businesses which can be slightly viable, that people would see that there is a general benefit of these people that are intensely valuable to society. Say, in the concept of a soldier doesn't earn too much money, but they lay down their life for their king and country, and obviously they do get the choice of the women for being that brave, valiant soldier. If you had that same conception or theory by women in terms of somebody who is running a small business which is viable for them, just giving themselves a nice little turnover, but nothing too incredible, but is a massive benefit to society or a massive benefit to the community or a certain sector of people or people that are in need of help, then and people are seeing that as immense value which is being provided to society, then they are rewarded with high caliber females, which in turn increase it's some kind of like eugenics talk here, but it does actually increase the stock of people to be focused upon how they can be good providers for communities and general morality of humankind as a whole. So there is those benefits which can occur, and it's fairly interesting in those terms. What other things? And obviously, when it comes to small businesses as well, I'm talking in a very voluntary, charity-based area, but we don't quite know if there is sort of other opportunities which are out there which do actually have a good, decent chunk of profit attached to it anyway. So there are obviously there's inventions which do come about, which at first nobody thinks they really need an iPad, but then all of a sudden people see the intrinsic benefits of having the iPad, and then all of a sudden everyone's funneling their money into that market. So if there was a competitive environment where people are providing services for communities, and the services were getting better and more improved and really tailoring themselves to the customer, maybe they could start to really entrench and carve out their own entire new market, and in the same way really change the focus of people to say, okay, well, I really don't need these material goods anymore. I really want to start purchasing these things which are going to give me a better town square, or going to give a children's playground, really going to put flowers in the streets. Who knows really what's could occur in terms of really improving society and how things could be improved on a micro level, but you do have opportunities which are not really envisaged by the circumstances of economic environments, and there is potential. There's always a lot of potential, particularly in any kind of market. You might think every market is saturated and there isn't anything to do, but there hasn't ever really been gigantic arms of profit motives in sort of community services, because that area has been dominated by government, and where you would potentially have a free market element of competition, say like you would have in the Silicon Valley and the technical areas, where there's always this massive competition and turnover of ideas, which is really pushing forward things, and people can't even get a grasp of how fast things are moving in that terms. Imagine if it was happening on a local level, whereby you were looking out onto your street and you're seeing the changes, the pavements turning into gold. I don't know really exactly how things could improve, but the community standards improving, people finding themselves happier, people find themselves fitter, all these kind of community-based improvements and high competition in funneling into these small margin businesses. And then potentially some people might catch on, might find the most immense amount of value which can be provided, and then they get a significant boost, and then that boost in turn improves society. Now, obviously, where we go and purchase like fast cars and get all these things, I guess this is really just us showing to the women we're high resource based people, and we deserve to get the highest stock of women. But whereby you are a business owner and you are really providing incredible services to society and really giving something back. I know obviously where people say, oh, well, the profit margin is going to really ruin you though, because you're going to be looking to cut corners, not really provide the care that you really want to, because you're just going to be looking for that profit margin. But in the circumstances of the environment, and if you do start to channel your mind more so focused upon how you can really improve, make the world a better place sort of thing, and then see, oh, okay, well, we're getting some money in return for this. Now, obviously, one thing I'm just pointing out here as well in general is that the biggest immense amounts of good that you do sort of seem to provide in society is the ones where you don't really get too much in return. So like you provide for kids that do not have any means in which they can give you anything in return other than their smiles and their happiness, I guess, which is incredibly rewarding, but there is no sort of monetary benefit from that. But you potentially do get certain circumstances where you may have crowdfunding. People might see that there's things that you're doing which is really benefiting children and things like that. I know that I'm talking about a charity concept in itself, but there is potential where there could be just tiny bits of profit which are being made from certain services, certain things which are being made in return. Potentially, you could even say merchandising. Whoever knows really what could happen, but whereby you would have the service, this tiny profit margin business, which was really trying to do a lot with a tiny amount of money. You potentially do have incredible derivatives of ideas and things that you can put forward to benefit society. Anyway, I think I'm rolling around a little bit too much with the same idea at the moment, but I will come back with more expansion packs to this theory. I know it doesn't really change the world too much in terms of having a small business plan, but where we do have a lull in entrepreneurial skills, and obviously nobody really teaches entrepreneurs in school how to be an entrepreneur in school at all, really. And seems to be one of those things where people who are school failures have to be entrepreneurs and do it alone when they don't have the qualifications to do it. It's an interesting, can we say vocation? I don't think you can really, because it's not really being studied, but it's some kind of life lesson which is very mutually beneficial for everybody. And with the economic environment that we're in, we can't really do it. We've got to hit the ground running. We've got to make the profit straight away, or the debt starts to claw up and drags us down. And it would be incredible if we didn't have the burden of debt always chasing us around the corner, just to take us out and really go back to working behind the bar or being a waitress and things like that. But there was something where we could have a rewarding job which is providing for society and does sustain us a fairly decent living. And when you think of it nowadays, one of the interesting things and the interesting concepts of nowadays is that you don't need too much money to entertain yourself, particularly on the internet, but even through the internet, you can go to meetup groups and go to games and whatever you want to do. So there isn't to find happiness where you have the internet and things like that. It's not too far away, and when it's interesting how really everything still seems to be based upon a high grasping material world of getting the large house, the boats, and all those kind of things, whereby really we don't need a lot. We just need maybe a laptop and just the basics of a house and or a unit, and not even too much size anyway. As long as you're near a park and a green area, then you're pretty much sure you're having a good amount of fun. So that is, it's an interesting concept, and it's not really too much explored because nobody really knows about the world in which small businesses can thrive. I know where there is an economic factor which occurs where you've got a small, where the economy is going really well, you get a lot of startup businesses that all start up and try all these new things, and then you get this on the business cycle, you get them all cold off when the economy goes sour again and there's too much malinvestment. But this cyclical thing of economics doesn't necessarily have to happen in every single area of the economy. So usually it happens in one side of the economy, say like housing, but then there's different other sectors like technology, which is unaffected while the housing is affected. But it seems like as everything is based upon a massive drive of credit expansion, every single economic sector is entangled together. So therefore, the whole small margin, small business startup route is very, very difficult unless you are really working with zero debt. But then there is the element of sustainable living and how you can survive. And unless you haven't got help from friends and family, it's a very difficult world out there. But kudos to you if you can do it. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I will be back for more and speak again soon.